What is something messed up about your parents that absolutely shocked you when you found out? Story 1. My grandfather, my mother's father, raped my sister when we were children, and my parents were the ones to report him. Despite this, they still talk to him on the phone. He's been out for years. As a child, I remember thinking, something's wrong with Grandpa, because whenever he came over, my mother would gently order my sister to go to her room and lock the door. She didn't care if my other sibling and I were left with him, even after the incident. I remember being taken to visit him in jail as a kid, e.g., being left in the parking lot with another relative while my mother and grandmother went inside, but never being told why he was in jail. I decided not to tell my mother that my sister isn't the only child of hers he's hurt. My father only told us to get back at her while they were divorcing a few years ago. It shocked and appalled me that she was able to welcome him back into our lives like it was nothing. But now, I don't feel anything anymore. I went 20 years of my life without knowing that my family was interacting with a predator, not only my sisters, but all 3 of my mother's kids. Story 2. My mom's best friend was actually her girlfriend. Her son and I grew up together and played sports together. My mom and dad were married until my father passed away. I was told this about them getting together. My dad needed help running a business, and my mom wanted a child. It was like a business arrangement. They even slept in different places. I didn't realize it until I was in my 20s. Story 3. When my grandfather died, he left all the kids $20,000. My father took it all, saying, "That's family money from my father," and spent it on things for himself. Story 4. My dad disappeared in 2001, and we thought he had died. He said he was in the provisional IRA. We tracked him down via a DNA test in 2022, and it turned out he had 3, maybe 4 families at the same time. He had given my mom a false name and was married to someone else. While he was with my mom, he got divorced, remarried, and had 2 children in another country. We did not suspect a thing. He wasn't around when I was born. He said he was working. He kept forgetting my name as well and never contributed anything. He once threatened to harm my mom, though he never hurt her, only me. Story 5. I knew a woman who met the love of her life in college, got pregnant, got engaged, and watched him die in a robbery 2 days before the wedding. She was beyond devastated and didn't have any family to rely on. She had a guy friend who had been in love with her for years. He pleaded with her to marry him so he could help take care of the baby. She was still in her first year of law school, so she was in no position to do it alone. They married and had 2 more kids. Her friend was a wonderful father to all 3 kids. She was appreciative and kind to him, but never really seemed happy. There's just sadness there, like she's waiting for something. On top of all that, it was very clear the oldest son was not her husband's. The mom had brown hair, brown eyes, and olive skin. The husband had bright red hair and freckles, as did the 2 younger sons. The oldest had blonde hair, like his father, and was 6 inches taller than anyone else in the family. It looked like an Irish family adopted a random Danish guy. Story 6. Not my biological father, but my stepdad. It's a long story, and not mine to share in full, but he was adopted as a kid and never knew what happened to his birth parents. His daughter used a DNA site to find family, which revealed his birth mom's identity and that he had been stolen from her and adopted out illegally. She spent 50 years looking for him because the people that did it used a forged birth certificate to change his name and date of birth. He got to spend a year getting to know her before she died of terminal cancer. Story 7. My grandfather sexually assaulted me from the ages of 7 to 12. The only reason I managed to get enough courage to say anything is because my little sister started asking some concerning questions. My parents never cut contact with him, and in fact did the opposite. They had him over all the time. My dad would crack open beers for him, and they threw extravagant parties for him and his friends. I was made to have a social relationship with the man who mistreated me for years. He was welcomed into our home on a regular basis. He stole my childhood, but they stole my peace. Story 8. In the early 1990s, my parents got divorced when I was about 9, and my mom remarried her hometown sweetheart when I was about 11. We moved to a new house in the country, and as my mom was unpacking a box, she found a headshot picture of my biological dad in his army uniform. Probably the generic one they'd take at basic training. She and my stepdad put the picture up as target practice and went to town taking turns shooting it. Then, once they were satisfied with how much it was shot up, they took it down, put a note on it that said, "We miss you, but not much," along with writing "miss" on every bullet hole that didn't touch my dad in the photo, and showed it to 11-year-old me before they mailed it to him. Story 9. My dad didn't want children or any responsibility, but agreed to adopt me so my mom would be happy. My mom kept detailed diaries her whole life. The diaries after my birth outlined how much she hated me, hated being a mother, and as I grew up, the hate was worse. She wrote about how what she was doing was emotional abuse, but kept doing it anyway. Neither parent should have been parents. Story 10. My dad had a specific kink where he wanted my mom to be with other people while he watched. He got very upset when my mom refused to participate, and that's the primary reason they split. He apparently didn't feel like bringing this up to her until 13 years and 2 kids into the relationship. Story 11. My mom has childhood trauma and emotional issues that were never dealt with. Still has not to this day. I watched her cheat on dad from when I was age 10 to 13. She is horrible with money and spends hours shopping for things she doesn't need. Also a hoarder. Dad was a mean drunk. Not physically mean, but emotionally mean. They both never knew how to have healthy communication. He worked 2 full-time jobs, and she spent money like it grew on trees. They filed for bankruptcy along with a divorce. To this day, my mom wonders why my husband and I have the home motto of throwing away or donating things every few months. He and I hate clutter. Story 12. My dad started cheating on my mom with his secretary shortly after I was born because he was jealous of the attention my mom was giving to baby me. Later, my grandma said my dad was justified in cheating because my mom went dancing with friends and didn't have dinner ready for my dad every night. Story 13. My husband's mother still won't believe all her kids were addicts until one of them died of an overdose, and even then, it wasn't their fault. It was the dealer's fault. Can you guess how dysfunctional the rest of the family is? Story 14. Something messed up about my family, but good about my parents. When my great-grandmother died, my family apparently started fighting over the remaining money and all the stuff in her home. I remember going to her house and helping sort items from her basement and garage. Everyone in the family got something. All I remember my mom and dad getting was grandma's new van. So, we got a car. Nearly 2 decades later, I'm scrapping the van after putting hundreds of thousands of miles on it. I got permission from my dad to get rid of it. It was his grandmother's van, after all. I called my mom to let her know the van was gone, and she began unwinding this story about when Grandma died. Apparently, the van was literally all my family got. Everyone else in the family fought over money and belongings, but my dad sat out of the arguments. He didn't take part. So, while some family members got big payouts, my dad asked for nothing. No one wanted the van, so he took it when the dust had settled. His kids then used that van for years. When my mom finally wrapped up the story, she revealed to me that Grandma did not die in the house as I was told. She died in the driver's seat of the van we inherited, the van I had been driving since I was 16. Sorry, Grandma. Not sure why that was kept from me. I wouldn't have done, well, stuff in the van you probably wouldn't have approved of had I known your ghost was probably in the car with me the whole time. Story 15. I was probably like 11 or 12, home alone during the summer, bored because I was grounded, and decided to go snooping through my parents' closet. Needless to say, it was my first time ever seeing a sex toy. It didn't take me long to realize why it was conveniently in a box with a bunch of Playboy magazines. It's not totally messed up, of course, but when you're a kid, it's horrifying. I couldn't look my parents in the eyes for a while after that. Story 16. My parents were part of a swinging lifestyle and often hosted large gatherings at our house. I was in college and still lived at home. I had an idea about their lifestyle, but not to the extent that it was happening. One night, coming home from a date, I had to navigate through a group of people to get to my bedroom. I opened the door to find several strangers in there. I went to the Navy recruiter the next day. My 16-year-old brother was equally shocked, but he managed to stick around for another year before moving in with his girlfriend after graduation. Story 17. My dad took my mom to a party in the 70s. It turned out to be a swinging party, but he didn't tell her what it was beforehand. He just took her there and expected her to join in. She left the party instead and told him he could stay if he wanted. She shared this story with me decades later. I learned that my dad wanted to be a swinger, and my mom is the kind of person who is okay sharing these details about what caused their divorce with her kid. Story 18. My dad called my mom unattractive after giving birth to me, even though she worked hard to lose the baby weight. He said he wasn't attracted to her anymore and used that as an excuse to go to strip clubs and cheat on her with our next-door neighbor. They even had a third person involved from his friend group. Needless to say, I already didn't care for my dad that much, but learning this as a teenager definitely made me lose any remaining respect I had for him. Story 19. My friend, whose parents are still married to this day, found out she and her sister are her dad's second do-it-right-this-time family. She has an older sister who is about 15 years older than her. He basically abandoned her older sister when he was bumming around South America in his early 20s. He got married and had a child, but didn't stick around for long. By the time he remarried my friend's mom and started their family, his previous marriage and child were long behind him. It's such a weird situation. I think my friend, her younger sister, and her mom all maintain a wary eye on him because it's so sketchy. Story 20. My mom is currently cheating on my dad, despite my sister and I both calling her out on it. My dad is a pastor, and on the outside we have a picture-perfect family, but my mom is seeing someone else behind his back. Her boyfriend sends her food to the house, and she sends him pictures of us. It's super disturbing. She changes his name on her phone every few months to hide it. I don't know how my dad hasn't found out. None of my siblings live at home anymore, and we all have caught her texting him. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, and watch my other videos. Goodbye, and see you again.